Welcome back to Battle Ready. Life has a way of throwing curveballs, job loss, illness, or even divorce. And for many, these moments can feel like their financial world is falling apart. George, you've been in the front lines of turnarounds and crisis leadership. Let's dig into how people can prepare for and bounce back from life's toughest financial decision. Now that as a COO of Legacy Performance Partners, I try to get it before the end of the show. The challenges that people view or the companies view, they view it at all levels, right? So you'll be working with the leadership, right, of these organizations and coach them through how to help their teams. And one of the things you just said a minute ago was about your financial class that you set up. Let's talk a little bit more about that.
All right, yeah. Again, it's more of, if you think about it, growing up, I know how I grew up, no one taught you how to be financially responsible, right? There's not a class in school. So I just gave a basic, lead a basic course on just the fundamentals on how to set a budget, how to keep the budget, right? How to maximize your paycheck, how to live within your means, how the difference between wants and there's needs. You got to take care of the needs. Unfortunately, a lot of people take care of their wants and then they don't have money for their needs. Um, and so you go through those basic, what apps to use, right? Start your kids off. Now they have apps for kids, right? Show them how to budget. That way they know at an early age than we ever knew, to be able to coach and teach them through, example, um, giving them chores and paying them, and then having them have to pay for whatever they want, right? Um, and work for it. So you're teaching them discipline, but you're also teaching them fiduciary responsibility. So it's those type of things. And if you can engage, if they can engage their teams that way, and they have a motivated team, their organizations will be successful. And if people think or feel that they're important to you as an individual, not just a number at a company, they're going to be loyal to you. So it's those type of um, engagements in the company that need to happen to really, you know, perform. And financial, the worst thing a person can go through is financial hardship because it's not going to affect their personal life, it's going to affect their professional life. So anything the company can do to help them, um, that needs to happen.
So now as you're having the Legacy Performance Partners group, you'll be also coaching the leadership on how how to maximize their financial situation because you said transitioning from FedEx to your first company, you were able to learn a lot about P&L, not the P&Ls, but the cash flow, what to make decisions on. Not. So how will you go about coaching them?
Yeah, just through like you said earlier, just hands-on leadership. I'm a numbers-driven individual. I definitely would use some AI tools to kind of expedite the learning gap that they may have. Um, and taking the data, telling the story, and then identifying the opportunities that they may or may not have, and to developing a solid plan that I can coach them through.
So what would a leader out there that's what would their situation be for them to reach out to you? I mean, what would cause them to reach out to you?
Again, especially from an entrepreneur standpoint, it gets to a point where you can manhandle an organization for a while, but when the organization gets too big for one person, you need assistance. And a lot of times, the entrepreneurs have never been through an organization of the size that we've been through, you included. And so they don't know what they don't know. So they need that expert. That's why there's so many consultants out there. They need those expertise to get them to the next level. Again, $100 million company cannot be run the same as a $500 million company. It takes different competencies. So their competency as entrepreneurs normally take a risk, work hard in the business, grow the business, do sales, operations, and finance on one person scenario. And you can't do that as the company continues to grow. So if you can't do that, then your company's going to be stagnant. And anytime your company's stagnant and you have competitors, they will outpace you, right? They will get more market share. So it's very important that these companies, they can't afford to have you on full time, but they can afford for you to come in, help them build a plan, build the strategy behind how to get them from phase one of their operations to phase two, and what are those steps? What does it look like? What technology do they need? Uh, it happened in the last company I was in. You know, it got too big, so it's a multi-pronged approach, Ricky. Um, but the desire is out there because most entrepreneurs want to grow their business, right?
Right.
Because when they try to sell that business, it's on multiple. So the bigger the company, the more multiple, the more money they're
Right.
gonna.
And I know one of the things I always was real proud of watching you do is taking the different departments within the organization and building a synergy. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, you have to build that team atmosphere, right? It's not one 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 operation against the other. So one of the things I do, I have all the people work in every department, right? Because you can think you know what the other person does until you go
If you
do
walk
it.
a mile in their shoes,
Yeah, yeah, right. And so that shows a lot of respect. And so, um, oh, Johnny or Sue, they don't do anything in that department. Well, you go try it, see how you do. So I make sure my first 60, 90 days that everyone in the organization is done has worked in every job. Maybe not for all 8 to 10 hours, but they've worked that job, understand, and that builds the trust and respect between the teammates. Another thing we practice is peer reviews. So each department gets to have a say about the other person's review, right? And that again builds because you can ask someone, "Hey, how you think you're doing your job?" So you give them the performance review and ask them how you think you're doing. What the average person gonna be like? A
I'm
five, a
great.
five, a five, a five, a
Right,
five,
right, right.
and then the boss has to sit them down and say, "You're not that good, but here's why." Right? It doesn't mean you're a bad person. It means here's some opportunities. And so we'll use some of that feedback from the different departments on how they interact and communicate and what kind of, throwing emails out there. There's what we call them
War.
bullies, email bullies, right? Um, and so you give them saying, listen, here's why in this competency you're getting a 1 and not a 5. But here's the reasons. Here's the examples that were given on you about specific situations that you could have handled differently. Then we take those situations and then we have them build their action plan to how they're going to work on that, and then you follow up, follow up, follow up. That builds
Cohesiveness, right?
yeah. Mm-hmm. And
I know that.
celebrating small wins. People want to win.
No, 100%. Yeah. I'm gonna go back to one of our FedEx Day stories. I remember it was right after, I think it was Katrina, and we were in Houston, but you ended up sending me to Lake Charles, Louisiana, and man, that place had been torn up, and and I was in the HR department. I was a contract resource guy too, and I remember we still were trying to get the packages out, and I remember getting a call from you saying, uh, "Hey Ricky, you think you could drive one of those trucks?" And I was like, "Yeah, I guess." I mean, I have been recruiting drivers. I've been recruiting managers to do this, and the next thing I know, I'm driving one of your box trucks delivering packages, and it definitely gave me a better understanding because driving a truck is whatever. But I mean, it's just there are different methods of boxing off the areas. And I remember probably one of the scariest things I did at FedEx was back a box truck to Bed Bath and Beyond down that little ramp, and I swear to God, I was going to knock off the mirrors. It was such a small group, and I'm the and your guy and the drivers did it so easily. So it was definitely a learning experience for me. I remember that really like it was yesterday.
Yeah,
But
and
so
that made you appreciate what a driver does, right? Because
100%.
yeah, yeah, and when they see that you're doing that, they're gonna have more respect for you. And when you
Yeah,
add,
no, yeah, I totally agree with that. I just I remember and the way the drivers.
I think that was Rita, and if you recall,
Oh yeah, maybe it's Rita.
and we they didn't have hotel rooms, so we rented RVs and we stayed on
Yep,
site in
yep,
RV.
on site.
Yeah. Uh, and we were delivering packages, myself included, and there was no signs. All the signs have been blown away. You
Oh
remember?
yeah, I remember that. and it was just definitely a lot of experiences that, when as we're talking through this, I'm thinking, and that was at a smaller level, but a very crazy part of the time, time in the U.S. And then you just keep pushing that on now at the higher levels, with it when you were at Fond du Lac, and now I guess you're going to this company today at 3, right? That's your first new opportunity, huh?
Yeah, today. So
So you looking forward to that?
I am. Yeah, I am. But like you said, it's a little scary, right? Because it's out of my comfort zone. But I'm okay with being. That's another thing about wealth, and you gotta push the envelope and get out of your comfort zone. So
Right.
but it is, it you can't stay
Right.
stagnant.
100%.
Much
Well,
trans.
everybody, we'll be right back with George Crosby, CEO, Legacy Performance Partners, right after this commercial.